Um, Duncan, you sent me an interesting article the other day. Um, it talked about how nearly 60% of new marketing grads are working in high school level jobs 5 years after graduation, which is somewhat alarming. And I don't know if it's all that surprising in some ways, but at the same time, 60% is 60%. The article cites a combination of AI and an oversaturation of grads is to blame. So, a question, kind of a hot tip for today before we kind of wrap up. If you were talking to a new grad who wanted to get a leg up on the competition, what marketing skills would you recommend that they pick up in their spare time? Ian, what would you be telling a new grad?
In terms of marketing skills, I would definitely say getting a good grounding in sales. Um, I think sales can sometimes have quite a negative image, the way people
Yeah.
imagine salespeople. However, um, understanding sales can have a huge impact on all aspects of your career and your daily life. Whether it's it'll improve your copywriting, it'll improve your presentation skills, it'll improve your ability to write things like resumes and cover letters. It'll help your interpersonal relationships, both in your personal life and your work life. It'll help you with negotiation. Even if you are 5 years out of university and you've got your degree and you are applying for what's considered a high school job, it'll help you in that interview negotiate for better terms, a higher position, better wages, all those things. So I think getting a grounding in sales is can be useful for absolutely anyone in their daily life.
Yeah. And I've mentioned it on the podcast before. For
Right,
me,
sure, yeah.
retail sales
Yeah.
completely changed how I look at marketing. And that was something that was very beneficial. Duncan, how about you? I know you've done some mentorships with students. What kind of things would you recommend in their spare time or in addition to schooling that they might want to pick up in terms of skills?
Oh, I want to start by just simply saying that the 60% metric to me is more a reflection, I think, on the quality of the schooling to prepare students for real world marketing
True. Yeah.
than anything else. I mean, even in my marketing background, it's always very, um, what's the right word? It's about theory. Mostly is what they're teaching about theory versus like practical uses
Like
for
tactics and
marketing
stuff. Yeah.
and understanding how the platforms work. Like even in digital, like very few people understand. Like they've ran a campaign or two, but they don't really understand the nuances of the campaigns. They don't understand how to build a strategy. I think a lot of the skills that they're learning in school, like I say, are theory based and not enough practical skills for what agencies need nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, in my opinion, they need the practical skills. They need to have built and ran campaigns and looked at the metrics, and then to Ian's point earlier, reviewing analytics to try and determine what worked and what didn't. I think one of the biggest skills that even the people that we're hiring today is understanding the data and understanding what story it's trying to tell. So to Ian's point, if you have a landing page that's not working, how can you tell within analytics what are the signs that would suggest that that page is not working? So there's like little simple things like that, but I think if I was to give it a simple answer, it would be learn how to run digital ads, because I still think that's a rather in demand skill. But also learn how to explain it in layman's terms,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of grads will just spit out numbers and buzzwords, and you people's eyes glaze over. You need to be able to explain it in a way that everyone would understand, and I think that's sort of the biggest trick to all this. Again, kind of on that sales arm is how do you take a complex topic and simplify it so anyone can understand? And if you can do that well in marketing, I think that's how you start building client trust. You start, really developing as a marketer is simply that act of being able to explain the complicated stuff simply. But in order to do that, you need to know what you're doing. So
Yep.
that's the trick. You need to have that experience, making campaigns, running them, understanding what's working and what's not, so that you can go into a meeting with confidence with a client and simply explain what you are going to do in layman's terms so that they get it and they're not just being wowed by a whole bunch of lingo and acronyms.
Yeah. And Duncan, to your ideas around being able to do that, that might be through volunteering to help build a campaign for, like a local business or something along those lines. Google's got a variety of really good courses, so you can at least understand the fundamentals before you try it. Maybe you've got a project on the side you could run a campaign for on your own. So there's ways to be able to dabble into that just so you have an idea of what it looks like. And then, anytime you have data, what does the data say? What's the story that it tells? Mine would be, Ian, you've talked about this in the past. I'm glad you didn't bring it up today because I had nothing else prepared. The idea of figuring out how to harness AI and write prompts and figure out how you can, take some of these AI-based tools and work them into existing workflows and things of that nature. I think that's going to be a very hot skill. And I don't know if there's a school out there that can teach it because it changes so quickly, but being able to go into an interview and say, well, you know what? I think I can help you guys streamline this through using some of these tools, and not only understanding what the tools do, but understanding how to actually use them or prompt them or set them up in a way that will allow you to streamline things. That's something that I would definitely recommend too. And that's just doing the research, putting in the work.
One last point with this, I think another big one that's going to be coming from this AI boom is automations. So, a lot of companies have their way of doing things, which will get outdated over time. So if you can learn how to automate things for businesses or set up automation strategies, that could be incredibly valuable because it saves time and money. And that's what you really need to do to be an effective employee, is make your company money, which is, as capitalist as that sounds, that is literally the truth. So if you can find ways to generate revenue or value for the business that you work for, those are the types of skills that will matter. So, again, if you're coming into it and you don't know enough about marketing to run a campaign, they're spending money to train you to manage it, versus if you come in saying, hey, I have experience in this, I can help optimize that, I can automate this so you don't have to worry about it anymore. Now we're talking because I can see the value in what you have to offer.
Yeah. And I'm waiting, Duncan, for when we have to do an interview one day and somebody comes in and says, I know lots about these tools. I can help you achieve this or cut down on costs or cut down on manpower that you need to do that. That would be a very interesting conversation because I'd have time for that. I'd want to listen to that and learn more.
Exactly. You got to give me a reason to want to learn more. And we've heard it all in the marketing industry. We've interviewed hundreds of people. And that kind of a perspective coming in is going to raise some eyebrows and get you noticed.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And another good point, if you're going for an interview, get a haircut. Duncan got a haircut recently and it looks pretty good. Ian and I got haircuts too, but a little bit more noticeable.